Complete failure.
IT, first time using this program, so it was always going to be a little bit clunky, but that's fine. It's also just like a little bit delayed. So catch up across all the platforms that we are speaking to everybody from right now. So for everybody who doesn't know, this is Krystal. And Krystal has recently studied aaruka therapy. She's up to her like practical. She's going to be out in the world practicing soon. But I wanted to interview and chat with Krystal today because when I spoke to her on the phone about studying aaruka therapy, she said that what drew her in was the depth and the trauma and wanting to work, with that. Krystal, for anybody who doesn't know you, would you be able to give us a little bit of a background history of, your childhood and your trauma and what I guess led you to wanting to do this deeper work for yourself and for others?
Yes. Well, hello. My name is Krystal, and I've recently studied aaruka therapy. And I think the thing that led me here the most was, my own traumatic experiences that I had to go in and through life. My parents, I feel like the trauma I experienced was very generational trauma. And so they were obviously passing down what they didn't know was any different. There was lots of, police, ambulance, hospital visits. There was chaotic fighting, screaming, bashing. There was sexual abuse. There was alcohol abuse. There was drug abuse. So my childhood wasn't the normal, get to be happy, get loved, and feel that love, especially. And I don't think I really ever experienced love from my parents. And it's a really weird thing to say that when you're like, oh, I've never experienced my parents saying, I love you, or hugging you, or wanting to embrace you. And I feel like I took all those traumas and I was, self soothing, I was self processing. And it was so funny to look at it now and go, I used to witness some really horrific things or experience a lot of horrific things. Like my mother tried to suffocate me at one point, and I would go to school the next day like nothing had happened. Like you wouldn't have been able to pick that's what I was experiencing behind closed doors because I was so good at hiding it because I didn't want people to know what was going on. But at the same time, too, I felt like it was normal. Like if I was experiencing this, like surely that's what everybody else was experiencing at some point as well. And I
Yes.
guess, yeah, I've had to spend so much time now, I think about it. I think of all the things I've done and gone, I really needed to heal myself. And I did one certification, but it just didn't do all the things that I wanted it to do, especially for deep trauma, because we take all those things into our adulthoods with patterns and loops, and we start repeating those patterns. And I even caught myself the other week doing something, and I was like, oh, that feels really disgusting. Like that's something my mum would do, and that does not resonate with me. And so that's why when I saw you and started following you, I was like, Jess gets it because Jess has experienced something really similar. So she understands the depth of trauma, the level that is needed to heal that type of inner child work as well.
Absolutely. I think that is what I find is that I'm drawing in a lot of women who have their own complex trauma histories and backgrounds. And, they have this really deep understanding of what pain and suffering and complexity of trauma is, because I think people don't realize how many areas of your life that it ripples into and the depth of that. And I think, like you said, there's so many powerful modalities out there. There are so many, and they're really good for a number of different things, but they don't quite get to the root cause when it comes to trauma, or they're not. I think and I don't know, like you've obviously just studied, so you'd be the best person to sort of explain this, but I don't think that they have the ability to pivot and to have a variety of tools that you can use when someone's stuck or when something else comes up that they haven't experienced before, to take them through all of those layers of healing, not just this is the session, this is the script, this is what we do. It's more than that. So what does healing actually mean to you? What does healing, like, how do you define it?
Ooh, I don't know if I'd necessarily define it. I think it's more a feeling. I think when you feel healed, because you feel authentic, you feel lit up, like life feels vibrant and life feels good when you are healed. And I think about the last 12 or 18 months, I have a business. I'm a skin therapist as well, which Aruka kind of leads into that as well, because I see women when they are their most depleted, rundown selves, they come to me seeking help or to validate, to fit their feelings. And Aruka also helps with that alongside with my skin business. And it's just, yeah, crazy to look at that aspect of it. But I think healing is just being your most authentic self. It's not having anybody else's projections on you and living everything from how you feel inside you, not from other people's perspectives.
Yeah, reprogramming that identity. I've been thinking about that and speaking about that a lot lately, where a lot of why we suffer is the identity that we adopted, who we had to be in order to survive, and who we have to be in order to survive, and who we have to be in order to thrive is actually two different people. And it's almost like we have to become someone new. And I think healing means the same thing to me. It's kind of in the dictionary, like healing is the process of becoming whole or
Mm.
complete, or so I think for me that's like coming back to self, to who you want to be, not who you were told you have to be.
And it's so crazy. I was talking on my Instagram stories this morning about the version of me 6 months ago. Like a majority of my clients canceled today. And if you had asked me 12 or 18 months ago how I would have handled that, I literally would have went on a spiral. I would have derailed myself. I would have been panicked, stressed, and anxious. And I also would have probably started drinking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to numb out my emotions because I didn't know how to handle and process it. Whereas I look at myself now, because I'm a completely different identity and I'm a completely different human, I can handle and I have the capacity to hold these things because I know in myself that that's not going to derail the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's actually such a perfect way to explain it as well, because a lot of people say to me, oh, you shouldn't say that you're healed. No one's ever healed. And I think everyone's always healing. But I think it's this understanding of exactly what you just said. No matter what happens, I know that I've got the tools and the ability to get through it.
Mm.
And that's when you know that you are healed or healing, is that you're not like afraid of going backwards and afraid of going into this deep darkness. You know that you've got the ability, the tools, the knowledge to be able to keep moving forward. I love that.
It's also trusting the process too. Like you need to be able to trust yourself, because how can you bring in or expand if you're not willing to trust yourself first?
Mm, absolutely. Self-trust is everything. And that's obviously something that is broken in childhood trauma, or something that's
Mhm.
never even built. Like we have to build that skill of self-trust. And if you are constantly taught to betray yourself, to betray your needs, to betray your reality, to pretend like what's happening isn't happening, it's really difficult to trust yourself. How did you start to build up? It's obviously, I think for people with trauma, it is like an ongoing journey, but how did you start to build up that self-trust?
I think I just always had a knowing that I was destined to more, because I think the older I got, when I was going from being like a young girl, I guess, to being a teenager, I kind of was like, I didn't want this for me. It's almost like my brain was talking to a completely different timeline. I know that sounds a bit woo woo, but it's almost as if there was some me in another timeline telling me that I am meant for more. Like this isn't normal, but your journey and your story is going to inspire and create something more. So I've always had a deeper sense of myself, that I can envision that. And that's what got me through a lot of hard times. As you know, being a teenager, processing those hormones, like my mum went to jail, my dad died of drug and alcohol abuse, I tried to commit suicide. I went through all these things as a teenager, and even though those things are were really traumatic to me, I'm actually really glad that I went through those things, because they have made me the woman I am today, and they have taught me so much self-acceptance and so much trust that I have the ability to do the things that I want to do, because I have witnessed and encountered so many horrible but beautiful things at the same time too.
Mm. It's like this paradox, isn't it? Because it's like it gives you this ultimate strength and this knowing that you can make it through anything. But then on the exact same side, it's almost like it gives you a weakened nervous system and very small capacity.
I think, like, I used to be somebody who would become so irate, so frustrated so quickly, but I didn't realize that my nervous system was literally just holding on by a thread because I had a very small, capacity to be able to handle things. And obviously, when I became an adult, I was drinking more because I didn't know how to process and feel my emotions because they had been built up for 20 plus years.
Mm. So was drink like what was your sort of moment that made you think, and I know that we've talked like you're still working through things. There's some traumas that you haven't, gone to yet. But what was like the tipping moment that I guess, was it drinking? Like what was it that kind of got you to the point where you're like, okay, I need to like change things up? Like what was that pivotal moment? And how did you even get introduced to the world of healing? Because there's so many people that have no idea it even exists still.
I've told this story so many times, and I love telling it because I feel like as women, we go through such a shift when we turn 30, and that is literally my pivotal point. I spent my 20s building a career, thriving in chaos. I would work, ridiculous hours. I would arrive to my workplace 2 hours before my shift started. I'd stay 2 hours afterwards because I believed that being busy was tied to my self worth and my identity. If I wasn't busy, I wasn't successful. If I wasn't busy or if I wasn't tired from my work, like it meant I wasn't doing enough or I wasn't doing like sufficient. And so
Mm,
when I turned 30 last year, it was probably one of the heaviest weights I ever was. I felt really alone. I felt lonely. I felt a lot of ashamed, and it was also 15 years since I tried to take my own life. And it was in that reflection when I was like, if I had been successful in that attempt, I wouldn't have been sitting there. And that was such a huge reflection and shift for me because I was like, holy crap, like I have so much trauma and so many things that I need to work through. And I didn't realize till that point that I was granted a second chance at life. Like I was granted something more because I was meant to be here and take people on a journey and show them how loved and how good life gets to be. And so once I turned 30, I really started diving deep into my healing journey, and I went and did some one-on-one sessions with an NLP coach who works on self-worth and confidence because I was at my lowest. I didn't believe I was worthy of friendships, or I had a lot of self-abandonment issues, and that comes from my childhood, being abandoned all the time,
mm.
being forgotten about at the bus stop at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and your parents remembering at 8 o'clock to come pick you up. Like I had a lot of self-abandonment issues. So that was the first thing I really started working on, was just like I used to be so scared of people leaving, but now it's a beautiful gift I see that, people come into your life, but when they leave, they're also teaching you something as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like you, like obviously, like you said, you turned 30 and you had this like reflection
Mm.
back to, I'm interested, like, had it been not been something that you had really thought about until that point? Like, was it something that just hit you and you're like, whoa, I remembered
Yep. I
when
literally
that happened? Yeah.
it was just so funny because I went away for my 30th, so I was sitting in this beautiful cabin remote in Tasmania because I love nature. I love being out in the hills and seeing the ocean, and we were sitting in this cabin, and I woke up, and that was the first thing that came to mind. It was like as soon as my eyes were, like, up, they're like, "Holy crap, it's been 15 years. That's half your life that, you wouldn't have got to experience if it had been successful." And I don't know what made me or subconsciously brought that forward. Maybe it was something that had triggered it. I mean, I don't know, but I kind of see it as a blessing because I wouldn't be here now if I hadn't have had that reflection of like going through that.
Yeah. So you did some NLP, like a program of doing NLP, and that had helped you so that you went on to study NLP as well. I think when you came to me, was it your master's of NLP that you've done? Or
Yes,
you
it
were
was in
doing,
my master's NLP.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then no, go, what were you say?
That's okay. Yeah, I did my masters of NLP, but I just felt like I needed something because I know I still have things inside me, I'm healing, but there's still parts of me that I really haven't opened up, like Pandora's box. And my husband and I can have like a slight disagreement, and his voice only has to raise like so slightly, and I'm instantly like in full tears, like my 4-year-old self witnessing my parents having a full domestic in front of me. And I revert back to that child in that trauma, even though I'm not experiencing it. So I definitely feel like having my NLPs was great, but I wanted something more body and trauma focused as well.
Yeah. And now you've studied it and you know how it all works. So you've got the deepest understanding possible. Now it's time to actually start having aaruka sessions
Oh,
yourself as
I'm
well.
so Oh, yes, I'm excited and nervous because I know there is a lot to unpack in my little Pandora's box. And I think I even said when we did our podcast episode together, like I saw my
Mm,
mum for the first time in like 15, 16 years. Like I've been no contact for so long. And I felt okay in the moment, but it was like the days afterwards. I just went from like being here, and I went down here so quickly into a rabbit hole. And I thought that
mm.
I was okay, but I really wasn't.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that that you know that there's something there that hasn't been. And it is it's interesting because there are so many women, and you're definitely not alone in this, who have come from trauma history backgrounds, and they've studied other modalities, and they've come and they've studied aaruka, but they haven't actually done it themselves yet.
Mm.
And there's a lot of them you might have noticed, like in the Facebook group, saying, okay, I'm going to put my hand up, does anyone want someone to practice on? Like I'm ready to start. But the resistance that you spoke about is a really important subject too, because I think there's this unconscious knowing when you study something this deep that it's probably going to work for you, but it's also going to be a little bit difficult in that process. Confronting, there's going to be identity upgrades, and it is really powerful. So we often kind of like we wait, we like pause and we wait. And I have people that have been following me for 5, 6, 7 years that are like, I still haven't tried it. And every year they're struggling more and more, but they are like, they're still avoiding trying it because I think we're afraid of it working just as much as we're afraid of something not
And
working.
we also get like really comfortable with being in our comfort zone. Like, why would we want to change what we're familiar with? We're familiar with being traumatized and having them, repeat on loop all the time. Why would we want to change that? Like, why would we want to get rid of that when it feels good to us, not knowing how good we can feel on the other side because that is unfamiliar?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's all it is. It's the unfamiliar that we're afraid of, the unfamiliar that we think that it's going to be worse. Like our brain, that survival brain takes over when you try to make a change. And it's like, whoa,
Yes.
this could happen and that could happen. And it's all completely unconscious. So for those like, for those who are, I guess, considering trying Aruka, or like, there's so many people who follow actually have no idea what Aruka even is or how it works. And I find that I'm obviously explaining it in a certain way, but if you were to describe it to somebody who maybe even like wants, because you're coming up to needing to do your practice session soon, so there might be some people in here who want to like put their hand up to be a practice person. If you were to describe it to someone, like what you're going to do with them and like how that works, what would be the way that you would, I guess, describe it to somebody?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, how would I explain Aruka therapy to somebody? The people, like, because obviously I have people coming into clinic all the time, and some of my regular clients know that I'm studying Aruka. So when I explain it to them, I essentially just say, Aruka is working on the 4 pillars of healing, because healing is never linear. We're not only working obviously on the subconscious, we're working on the body, the somatics, the quantum field, because the space between you and I, that's just not nothing. There is a magnetic energy field. And if you have ever walked into somebody's space and gone, oh, I don't like this person, that is literally your quantum space entangling with somebody else's space as well to tell you that that person isn't meant to be within your field. So we're utilizing all these pillars to help you understand at your core on a subconscious level that you might even not understand logically what is actually holding you back from the things that you want to do, or something that you have on your heart. Like, there is a belief down there from your childhood. There is something down there from something you may have experienced that might be traumatic, or might have been traumatic to you, but you don't see it as traumatic to others because that is your normal. And we help with processing the memory. We help transplant and replace that bad memory with a good memory, and uncover those beliefs, so that when you have a session and you come out of it, you feel lighter, you feel enjoyment, and you get to be the best version of yourself. And there are going to be moments after that session that you are going to feel a little bit, and I've experienced this myself with other sessions, that you can feel a little bit like, oh, emotional, and you can feel a little bit exhausted, because we're working on such a deeper level. But when you come out that other side, you literally feel like your identity, like your whole person has been upgraded into this newer version of you that is feeling more healed than previous to having your session as well.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect. I love that. It's such a good
Feel
way
like
to
I've missed something
it,
there, but I was just like, oh, I think that's how I would kind of explain it. But I mean, Aruka is so different to any other certification, because I was looking at so many modalities and I was just like, oh my God, this is going to cost me a fortune to study everything like so individualized. Whereas this literally puts it into a whole perspective and then teaches you how to integrate and intuitionally know how to use those in the moment when you're with the client having the session as well.
yeah, I think that's the main aspect. Like I definitely found that, like I said, there are so many powerful modalities out there. I was just speaking with a friend the other day about the power of IFS, and we were talking about like how we've had such powerful, profound shifts with IFS personally. And she was talking about maybe studying it. And we were talking about all of these different modalities, and we are kind of like firing them. And I was like, well, that works with your subconscious. That works with your subconscious in your parts. That works with, in parts and shadow work. And like I go through so much of that in the certification, kind of pulling it together so that you can understand what's actually happening
Yeah.
underneath. Because it's all good and well for me to give you a script, but what happens when somebody doesn't fit the script? And I
Mhm.
think that was what I was really passionate about, is learning how to work with the somatics, with the subconscious, with the energetics, with the memory, and having a number of different tools that you can use to pivot to meet them where they're at, or actually at in their healing journey too. Because I found like people were doing shadow work and when they'd done nothing else. And if you come from a complex trauma background and you find yourself in shadow work, that it's a terrible place to be, because for somebody who already guilt and shames themselves don't
Mhm.
have the capacity to hold something like shadow work. That's an advanced level of healing, I would say. So it's understanding what tool to use at what time and how to integrate them. Like you said, not just using one thing and expecting it to apply to all situations and all people, because it just doesn't, as you would know.
It's like some people can visualize when you're asking them, can you go back to that memory? Some people can't, visualize that memory. So it's like, okay, well, what's the block here? Like, it's going back and I can't. I was just trying to think of. I've literally only just finished doing all the toolboxes, but there's a place when we're doing memory processing where it's like taking them back to try and retrieve the memory, and because your body has stopped you from seeing that memory because it was something so traumatic that your brain has switched off, and so it's trying to retrieve the memory to bring it to the front, but not everybody can do that either.
No, and repressed memory is something so fickle. And I think I say that in the repressed memory is one of those things that is quite difficult, but there are ways to like open us up gently to what we need to remember and to what we need to
Mhm.
see. But yeah, I think that I'm very passionate about depth, and especially when it comes to trauma. So as you finish up the certification and you begin to practice aaruka therapy, what are the sort of people that you're wanting to work with? Who are the people that you're like, I can't wait to work with the woman, or the people who, like,
Oh,
what's your
I
niche?
can't wait to just work with the woman who knows that she's meant for more. I think that becomes a pivotal point in every woman's journey where you go, I can't keep tolerating this. Nothing's going to change if nothing changes. And I want to help that woman in her journey rediscover herself, but also, work on those beliefs, those conditionings, those identities that she's holding on to that don't serve her anymore, so that she can awaken this new, beautiful identity that she gets to be. And I always think of my younger self, and I want to be the person I wish I had when I was starting on my journey and, needing guidance. I want to be that for everybody else, because everybody gets to experience this beautiful life that we get.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes, there's been so many things that you've said that I'm like, that's me too. You probably felt like that when we were doing the podcast.
Yes.
We've had a lot of already.
No, and I feel like too, like I'm a really big believer that, and I'm a generator in human design, so I feel like I can't do something unless I have experience, and I know my traumas are something that I really need to uncover. So I don't want to step into treating trauma just yet, because I want to work on my own first, so that when I'm doing it from a really authentic, and I'm doing it from a place where I feel good and not having my own hidden little closet there that I still haven't worked on myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a blend in this. A lot of people say, like, should I wait to study before I've healed? But then there's an element of people that just never feel healed. So they never study and they never do it. But then there's also that, like, you do. It's interesting. Like, a lot of times where I think, oh, I probably should have healed a lot more before I started helping people. But I actually was getting insanely powerful results, even when sometimes when I was at my worst. It wasn't good for me. And that's where I say to therapists, like, you need like space and time for your nervous system and for you to heal yourself, where you're not having to hold other people. But it's so interesting because I think there is definitely this, when you have that empathetic soul and when you are that sort of person who is drawn to healing, you're still able to actually guide people in such a powerful way, even more so than what we realize.
It's like I'd probably like guide somebody on the journey, and I'd be amazing at it because I hold space for all my clients already. It's just like there's a limiting belief there that is telling me that, and you know what? Healing is never. We're always healing. So I still even have my own things to work on, because I'm never going to be 1,000% a perfect healed human.
No, absolutely not. No, I don't think anyone is. I think we're all always, evolving and working on ourselves. And I feel like it is a lifelong commitment. It's like once your eyes are open, they're open. I always say as a joke, I wish I could go back and just never have opened, like never even discovered any of this and just be living obliviously. But it's also not, that's not true at all, because it's a beautiful life out the other side, like you said. And there is so much good. I think there's a big fear as well with uncovering and bringing things to the surface. And I know you said this as well. And what I've actually found is that it is hard when things come to the surface and it is confronting. But I noticed the other day, I was thinking about the last like really big trauma that I remembered and that came back and that I worked through. And I was thinking about the difference I feel in my body, the difference I feel in like a lightness that I can't describe, and a version of myself that's like thinking and speaking and saying things that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I can do that now. And, just this new version of myself, this lightness, this even just feeling more healthy. It's all stored there in that trauma. And I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt really, really good. And with each trauma that I've healed, it just gets better and better. Like life just gets better and better. Everything in my life, my relationships, friendships, my kid, like everything just gets so much better. And I think that we're so afraid of change, but when we're doing it, in the right way, and this is where people obviously, I'm sure you've experienced this, have been, they've had a lot of trauma and they've been to the wrong therapist, or they've been somewhere and it's not helped, it's made them worse, or they've been promised that it's going to heal all their trauma and it didn't, and they lose hope. Have you experienced that sort of? Yeah.
so many times too. Like I think of it and I was just like, so many people as well, are so scared to start the healing process because they're scared of sitting in the moment where they're remembering, they're feeling, and they're so scared to relive that moment without realizing, especially like with the way we do in Aruka, we're not mellowing in that whole memory in that process. We're literally just bringing you to it, processing the memory, having a healing conversation, and then we're literally sending it up. Like, we're doing so many beautiful things in that aspect of healing. But even in my own journeys, I've had things where I've gone into a session and then I've been uncontrollably crying and I haven't been able to regulate myself for hours after the session, or I felt really numb. I remember I had a psychologist and we talked and talked and talked, and it just felt so numb. I didn't have anything more to give as well.
Yeah. And did you start to feel like there was like it just wasn't going to get better? Or did you start to have you had those moments where you're like, fuck, when is it gonna actually lift?
Um, I mean, yes. When I feel like when I get deep in the rabbit hole, I always feel like it's a never ending, like it's never going to get better. I'm going to be stuck here forever, and that's just a normal part of the human brain functioning there because we're just so acclimatized out to that when you've been through trauma, and you kind of sit there, and it's a really horrible feeling to sit there and not be able to know how to get out of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing that obviously I was really passionate when creating Aruka
Mm,
that we have that allows people to revisit the memory and process it in the same session so that it's
mm,
done. I think people are used to having to revisit something can open it up multiple times, but they actually with the process that we use, as you would know and you would have seen in the examples with the sessions that I did as well, that we're bringing it up to the surface only when we're ready to actually process it and shift it. And I have a blanket rule across Aruka therapy and for all therapists is that you don't open or go into a memory that you're not able to have the time to close on that day,
mm,
because it's really important that you're bringing that memory up and you're actually correctly processing it on the day, and not just processing it visually, but processing it somatically, processing it energetically, because people think that memory is just one thing. They think a memory is just, a visual aspect stored in one part of the brain, or whatever their beliefs are around how memory works. It's energetic, it's soul level, it's visual, it's brain, it's brain waves, it's body, it's somatics. When we're pairing all of that together, I think you would have heard me say in the course, we only have to work on each memory once.
yes.
And that's what people don't realize is you only have to bring it to us once. We only have to work on it once for it to for that one memory to shift and to move. And then there's that lightness that comes in the capacity for I can do this. I can do another memory. I can do another. Like it gives you that inspiration. But the hardest part is starting.
Mm,
Like the hardest part is getting over that hump and just booking in and just trying it, which is what I've literally been saying to people lately. Just try it. And I think there's this unconscious, people know that it's, like I said, going to work. So there's fear around actually doing it because they're like, oh, this might actually work.
like, I might actually be
Yeah.
thinking and not let that ruin the rest of my life, because some people use it as like a tactic to be like, I can't do this because my dad beat me. I can't do that because my mum used to lock me in a cupboard for 8 hours or overnight. Like, people use it as an excuse sometimes because they don't want to accept that they can live another reality.
Yeah, and they don't know how to live another reality. They don't know any different, and it's almost the part of our brain that like can see a solution is just not aware of the solution. So someone you could say to someone 1,000 times, aruka therapy is it works for trauma. It's designed to work for the trauma that, no one else can touch. It's designed for the hard stuff, the complex stuff. It'll work for you. And they won't even remember it. They won't even remember the conversation, the name, because our perception is constantly filtering. And if we're not ready to heal and we haven't had that moment, it goes. And everyone has that moment. Whenever I ask that question, there's always that moment where someone's like, what else is there? Like, I've been talking in talk therapy, like what else is out there that can actually maybe shift this, because this isn't really working. And it sounds like for you that was that moment when you were 15 of like, wow, like am 30. It's been 15 years since I had tried to kill myself, and I'm still here.
Really funny because up until that point, I had never thought about it again. It was almost as if I tried to take my life, and the weeks afterwards, I was really heavy and I was really numb, and I was just kind of like a walking shell of a human. And then I've never really thought about it again. I've obviously buried it deep in the hatchet, but there was something that was just like, and whether or not it's going through a Saturn return or a Mercury retrograde, like something happened and was just like, hey, you haven't said that you like I've always said that I wanted to be the best version of myself, and I've always wanted to be able to help people, and you haven't done that. Why haven't you? Remember this part of your life where you're like, I'm never going to allow another woman or another person to have to go through that alone.
So it was almost like you remembered the oath that you had made, and then at that time. And interesting, I did read about it when I turned 30 and had a similar thing. All my memories and trauma come to the surface. And I remember reading about it, and there was like something about women turning 30. And I don't know what it is, whether it was like something that had been studied or whether it was like a spiritual thing. I can't remember where, but I remember reading about it and everyone being like, yeah, it's a real thing. When you turn 30, this happens.
I have like so much respect for myself. Like I used to think I was a pushover, a people pleaser. I would fill everybody else's cup before my own. Like I gave so much of myself to everybody else, but I'd really neglected myself. And when like that was such a pivotal time because it's like, you know what? Like I deserve friendships that are reciprocal. I deserve friendships and people in my life with depth. Like I deserve all these things and I shouldn't have to sacrifice to have those. And so it was such a beautiful awakening to be like, no, like I need to hold myself to those boundaries and to those things that I know that I want and stop just, people pleasing because you're scared to let people go from that self abandoning aspect as well. Because I was so scared to lose a friendship or so scared that people would leave because I didn't want to be left alone.
And that is the bottom line. Like I talk about that in the certification a lot of like almost every subconscious belief, every fear, every bit of pain that we have is like pulling back to this deep, deep, deep core belief of I am alone or I'm going to end up alone. Like it's always coming back to that, isn't it?
It is.
Everything,
Yeah.
being judged, relationships, fear of breaking up, fear of losing people. It's just loss and this feeling of being alone. And I think we're all in that together, which is
Humans, we crave connection, we crave community, we crave to be a part of something because that is just our innate knowing. As when we were cavemans, we were in packs, and so as humans have evolved, we now have phones, so we don't feel the need to be a part of anything, and that's why a lot of women feel alone. We can feel connected, but we also feel alone at the same time too because we don't have that support behind us.
yeah, and we have like a lot more superficial connections, I think. Like we have Instagram friends and we have like, yeah, acquaintances, but like not a deep, loyal, connected community. And I think that's where a lot of people are like biologically also missing. I know that for me, I was just speaking about this with my partner the other day. I was like, I feel like I've spent so long running a business that a lot of my connections are through business that I want to get back out in like obviously still see my friends and things, but like, yeah, we start to have these like connections that are more online connections and not like in person, feeding that desire for connection.
Yes.
Anyway, we're just having some tangents now, but
I mean, I could go on for ages. There's so many like little rabbit holes you can really dive into. And I mean, aaruka is such like it's probably the best investment I have spent on myself. I've obviously spent a lot of money over the years on so many different things, but I think it's been the best investment for me, not only for my own journey, but like for money wise for what I spent. I was just like, oh my God, this was the best money I have ever spent on learning something so different and so beautiful. And I just can't like recommend it enough. Like I remember when I called you to like inquire about it, I was already telling people about it before I'd even called you. Like, hey, like I think I want to study aaruka therapy. I was telling people about it, so it was just obviously going to happen. It was just at some point, and that was when.
I think it magnetizes the right people. Like I find that my dog's losing her mind in the background. I think I find that there's people that don't get it, and then there's people that are like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because you have to first have that understanding of like there's needs to be a blended approach where we're working across all of those different like modalities or pillars, as I call them. You need to have that awareness first before you're ready for something like aaruka, because it is deep, it is complicated. Not complicated, it's simplified, but it's also complicated. I don't know how that, you would know how that makes sense.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. It's a simplified method, but it's also complicated in, I want to make sure that people understand how to work with.
I'm just going to plug my computer and it's about to die. Actually,
multiple
Jess,
times a day.
I would love to ask you a question if that's okay.
We're still, once we've finished, I think we can probably end it in a minute. Let's wrap it up. So what would you say to someone who is considering studying aaruka therapy, but they're feeling that resistance? Like, is it the right course for me? I have so many people that are like, oh, I'm just not sure. I'm looking at a somatics course, or I'm looking at NLP, or I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. Like, there's so many options out there at the moment.
If you're already looking at it, I think that is your right answer. Like, I was looking at aaruka before I even knew I was ready to study aaruka or knew what my next steps were. And I was looking into so many other different things, but because I kept coming back to it, I was just like, I'm already looking at it. It's a sign that I need to do it. But I think it's the best investment you can make, because we're not only healing people internally in our minds and our subconscious, but we're working on quantum fields. We're working on so many different things that other practices don't incorporate unless you go and do other certifications. And being able to study it all in one and then learn how to interpret it and blend all those methods together just makes so much sense, instead of nitpicking from here and nitpicking from there and then actually not understanding how to blend the two together or more.
That's definitely, and I have people that have done all of the certifications that I did and they still don't know how to blend it together. And that's part of the magic too, is you can do a certification but not understand what you're actually doing. Like, I think I explained EMDR the other day to someone who was a psychologist who'd done EMDR, and they were like, the way that you just described what it is that we're doing was so perfect but so simplified into like 2 sentences. I'm going to have to use that description, because like that taught us in the therapy. I'm like, but that's what you're doing. That's what's happening in the brain. That's what's happening in the nervous system. I think that's where you get that deeper understanding of what's actually happening and why you're doing it. So amazing. Well, so you're not practicing yet. For everybody who's thinking about it, you're not practicing yet. I will be sharing when you're ready to start practicing. I'll be obviously sharing in all of your things about aaruka and about who you're practicing on and what you're doing. And for anyone that wants to find you, because obviously we're streaming across multiple platforms right now, where's the best place for somebody to find you? Timing is at?
Well, I have my main account on Instagram, which is just Krystal Lang _. I'm still figuring out my TikTok. There is a TikTok account there, but I can't log into it. So follow me on Instagram or follow me on the podcast at Abundant and Ambitious. And I'm obviously always regularly updating things as well, but that's where you can mainly find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing bits of your history today. And I'm looking forward to you starting to have your sessions as well. I'm looking forward to you having aaruka and experiencing it yourself and getting an even deeper understanding through being the one that experiences it. Because thanks so much. Thank you so